Okay, I understand we have joined the live stream. I apologize for those on watching. We're still having a few technology issues here. We're trying to get started, but I'm going to go ahead and kick us off and call us to order in accordance with South Carolina Code of Laws, 1985, Section 30-4-80-E. The following have been notified of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting: the Herald, the Charlotte Observer, CN2, and WRHI. If I could ask everybody first to please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll now stand for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I do not have my technology yet, but our first item is the approval of the agenda. And before we approve the agenda, I'm going to recommend that we amend the agenda. I know several of us have spoken. We had an item on here, 2.01, to approve the brand and seal. I think there's first been some confusion about what today's intent was. So the intent was to approve specifically the brand symbol and the seal. Now, we had some conversation a week ago when we had the presentation from Rhodes Branding Consultant about some next steps that would involve mission statements, vision statements, et cetera. We have no administrative recommendation for any of those at this point in time. So I know we discussed, we heard what some items could be, might be. That was the next step. Having said that, my recommendation would be that was going to be a next step anyway. And the good news is there's been a lot of energy and excitement around what should our mission and vision be changed to? Should it be changed at all? Should it be something different? What words do we want to use? And words are important. And so my recommendation would be that we amend today's agenda to not vote on the symbol and the seal so that we can continue the work, we can involve the appropriate members of our stakeholder community. We'll continue to work with Rhodes Branding as well. We'll do the work on the mission statement, the vision statement. We'll build the whole energy around a full-blown rebrand at a future date. So that would be my recommendation as how we handle it, but also a specific agenda item amendment. So if others think that that's reasonable, I would entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that we amend the agenda to eliminate item I gotta get my thing here, 2.01, regarding the seal and the logo guy thing, whatever we're calling him.
Seal.
Second.
Any discussion about that amendment?
No, the only thing I would add is that this started early with strategic planning back the beginning of the year, and I think that it's important to continue with strategic planning team and committee that's stakeholders from the community and whatnot to work with the full rollout.
Yeah.
I think it's important that people understand that this didn't happen overnight. We had an incredible amount of people that started outside of the branding company. It would be our strategic planning group that was invited. I think there were 75 or 100 people here that day that involved people in the community. It involved some board members who were able, it involved staff, and then others. And so this was not something that was done overnight. It was not something that was done quickly. The staff has been working diligently on this since February. But I think that in spite of all that work and all their efforts and all the wisdom that has been with that, I think it's important to get it right rather than fast. And it's unfortunate that the timing is right here at the beginning of the school year. We couldn't push this through. But again, I think right is important, and I'm not sure that we were right yet.
Well, we weren't ready.
And
yet.
we weren't ready.
It's not a push through.
Right.
Okay.
So.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, the agenda is amended, which takes us to really the specific things that we had originally planned to meet today about are some budget items, starting with item 2.02, discussion on a modified teacher pay scale from Ms. Lordo.
Good afternoon. At the prior board meeting, we shared with you and discussed the final state-approved budget after the conference committee had finished their work. And as a result of that, we did pick up a small amount of funding, $91,000 rounded. We also shared with you that our surrounding districts had finalized their budgets, and as a result, we became aware that instead of a flat $2,000 teacher salary increase, they elected to include a portion or their full amount of the local supplement in their $2,000 increase. So you asked us to go back and look at our calculations, and at that meeting I shared with you that a couple options, and the most desirable, I think, was to be able to increase our teacher salary an additional $300 over the $2,000 that you had previously approved in the budget on June 7th. So that would bring our starting teacher salary to $43,700 and would once again place us at the top of the surrounding districts on the teacher salary scale, which we have been for many years. In order to do that, I shared with you that that would necessitate an increase in the overall budget of $589,644, less the $91,352 that we knew at that point was additional state revenue. Since the last meeting, somewhat coincidentally, we got some new funding reports in a couple areas that I'll share with you, and I also did a review of our whole revenue projection based on, once again, this is 30 to 45 days later of the numbers that you had seen in the public hearing and then the approval on June 7th. So just due to the time of year, a lot can happen in 30 days with numbers and projections. But somewhat in summary, in addition to the $91,352 from the state, we received our June county tax collection reports, which were favorable for us. And based on those numbers, I felt comfortable in looking at, I had previously estimated tax growth next year at a conservative 3%, 1.5% on general tax collections and 1.5% on fee and lieu. I feel comfortable bumping that up to 2% on general tax collections. You can see from the analysis I sent you, fee and lieu has actually gone down. That's not uncommon because a lot of these companies that are under a fee and lieu agreement are required to pay the full amount up front, and then they can apply for their fee and lieu reduction, and that happens before year end. So it's not uncommon to see that go down. But I am comfortable in increasing the local tax estimate now based on those June numbers for a slight amount of additional growth. These potentially would not be the final numbers. Like our district, they're working through their audit. They do a complete review of all tax collections for the year. They'll look at any additional adjustments specifically in the countywide area, which we normally benefit because we're the growth district of the 4 in the county. So I'm just sharing that with you. I could come back later and say the final numbers were even more positive. But this is based on what I saw on the June tax collection reports and the adjustments they've made so far. The other tax revenue number that I went ahead and looked at and adjusted is we've received more information now from the Department of Revenue on this new heavy equipment rental fee that's paid by Sunbelt Rentals in our area. I feel comfortable now going ahead and lowering that because we don't feel like that full amount will be sent to us as we initially thought a few months ago. So I lowered that projection from roughly $300,000 per quarter to $100,000 per quarter. I really don't know what that number will be, but with this being the headquarters, I feel pretty safe in saying I expect we would get at least that much per quarter. So that adjusted our total tax revenue collection over what you had previously approved by $382,643 of additional revenue to come in. I mentioned the new education funding increase of $91,000. We also got an additional bus driver amount because the state got the final routing data from all the districts was submitted, and they sent us a memo last week, and they redid the calculations, the allocations, so we will pick up $26,582. So that gives us a total in new state revenue of $117,934. Also on those June county reports, they had gone back and updated the interest allocations, interest on investments. The market's looking somewhat better. And based on what they have allocated to us, I feel comfortable in increasing the interest on investment allocation or projection for next year by $45,000. And then if we pull in $50,000 more from contingency, the previously approved budget was based on a transfer from contingency of $3.2 million. If we increase it to $3,250,000, we would generate total revenue of $595,577 new. That would cover the $300 increase for our teacher salaries, and we would not be asking you to increase the millage. We would be able to fund this budget, which would be $192,544,541. We would be able to fund this at the 16 mil level that you previously approved on June the 7th. At the prior meeting, I had discussed with you the possibility that to do this, we might have to increase millage 1 to 2 mils. But with these updated numbers, I am comfortable that we could fund this at the current millage level. What questions?
Ms. Lorna,
Yes,
any day we can increase the pay for our teachers is a great day.
absolutely.
Originally on our list of priorities and whatnot, the 2,000 was on there. The $300 was not on there. We had a number of other things that were on our list falling into the next categories down. How did we determine that this was a priority over the next 2 items or 3 items, whatever, on the list? That's really the only question I have about it.
I feel like, certainly as an administration, what we have seen happening in the education field across the state and the nation as far as teacher recruitment and retention, that this has become a vital consideration in maintaining our teacher salaries at the highest level that we can fund. We are certainly still challenged with the fact that we are the fastest growing district in South Carolina. We are having to still hire probably proportionately the highest number of new teachers a year to accommodate our growth. And our state funding is not at the same level as some of our surrounding districts, and certainly not at the same level across the state. If we were a district that did not have to hire this many new teachers a year, we would have more opportunity, I think, to even provide more increases across our district, not only for teachers, but for all of our staff as well. But as an administration, we determined that this was a high priority for us in the area of teacher recruitment and retention going into next year. And with the diminishing pool of teaching applicants and what we're hearing, students entering the profession, we felt like this is important. And that's why we're making the recommendation to you that this would be the next priority.
I agree with that. And I will say $300 is nice. It's not life-changing per se, not in this context anyway. But now we're comparing it to the next level. The next item down on the list was also teachers, but it was a subset of teachers. Another group that we're struggling with recruiting and maintaining, and it was about adding days, essentially training days to help
Correct.
work with the retention piece of things.
The special ed assistants?
Yes.
Shifting their contract days, yes. You can see that was the next item, or one of the items in category 3. We've had a lot of discussion about that and the need to, with our turnover in that area this year. What I was told is that special services felt like this would be beneficial to provide some additional professional development for their staff in dealing with the issues in the classroom, kind of helping up front to alleviate some concerns that some of the staff have had, that we felt like that would be extremely beneficial as well. I feel like you all know that when we bring you this list, you saw the full list of requests, which I believe was close to $26 million. We've had a lot of discussion, and everything on the master list, as I call it, is important. But when we put it on one of these lists to come to you, this has already gone through a lot of discussion among the senior leadership here. And we feel like this is kind of the next pecking order as funding is available of items to fund.
So this one item, this $300 that wasn't on our list, is more important than the next item, which was the other teacher piece and the
Correct.
mowers.
We
the
feel like
additional
at this
mowers and
point,
whatever.
based on what we know has now happened with teacher salaries in our surrounding area and across the state, we are unfortunately, because now the state minimum is $40,000 on the new state minimum teacher salary scale. What we're going to see is now these districts who were at lower teacher salary levels, they receive the state funding to bump up to $40,000. So the gap is going to become smaller and smaller across districts as far as teacher pay, which is going to make it even harder for us to recruit new teachers from out of state who really don't know that much about South Carolina and specifically our area. It's going to be very important to them to go with a district that's committed to keeping it at the highest level, I think.
And especially because we don't know what next year's funding model will even be based on,
Correct,
right? So that's a concern.
correct.
Doctor, I have a question for you. So over time, I continues here that we have quite the reputation and there's value and all those types of things. My question for you is, we still feel that way? And how do we place reputation and value in relation to this $200?
I think Ms. Lordo
Or 300.
300,
Ms.
yeah.
Lordo mentioned, when you're coming here, we're recruiting from all over the country now. And you don't know much about Fort Mill or Clover or York. So when you look at that, when you add the 300 and you put us back at number one in the region, at least you get their attention right off the bat. So I think I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that's how it's a recruitment issue for us. And it could be a retention issue going forward because every sale went up 300, but
Okay, so we had, even outside of whatever information we were waiting on from the state, we still had the ability to make our own decisions when it came to whatever we choose to pay the teachers. I'm talking about millage or whatever the case may be. So my comeback is that we had that opportunity, and so now we're asking for that. And I'm just trying to figure out the value, the reputation that we like to proudly talk about.
I think if you remember, first meeting, Ms. Lordo advocated for 21 mills. You know, I'm trying to look out for you and the taxpayers and have a good balance when we say what we did. We could have said 21 mills and took care of it, taken care of it. But to me, it's a balance because it's not only our staff, it's also the public and the tax money. And then, so that would be my response to that.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
You know, Mr. Bolden, I really appreciate your line of questioning, because I think what it does is it points to the opportunity that's here right now. I think this board was expecting to come into today with the possibility that we might need to look at raising millage to cover this important facet of what we thought would be important in this budget, and that's putting us at number one, which I would agree is extremely important. and would be a high priority. But I think what I see here now is a potential for us as a board or for the administration to look at that category 3, knowing that we have an opportunity here to maybe look at something that is a global request. When you kind of look at that list, you see things like the additional days for special services assistants. We've talked a lot about in the past couple of meetings about additional maintenance folks to help with upkeep of our buildings. I think the other thing that for me looked like something that is an end-to-end impacts the entire district across the board is an additional at-risk 4K position. Because I think when you look at something like that, you're taking 40 students that will eventually roll into our elementary schools. That impacts how instruction goes on a day-to-day basis in all of our elementary classrooms, and then is preparing students for that secondary learning when they get into middle school and high school. So a 4K, an at-risk 4K position, which is a relatively low cost when you're considering our budget, can have a tremendous long-term impact. So I guess that would be my question for you, Ms. Lordo and Dr. Epps, is what is that next highest priority on the list that if we were already coming in here thinking we needed to potentially use that mill or 1.7 we had even discussed, what is it that we could now go back to those categories and look, and what was the next highest priority that we might need to consider as a board?
Well, I think I would say we go to category 3 because after a lot of our internal discussion, we prioritized category 3 next, which, as you recall, we had 2 additional items in category 3 that you then asked us to bump up to category 2. The Director of Educator Effectiveness, Recruitment, and Retention, and the Curriculum Coordinator of Science, K-12. We were able to fund that under category 2. Category 3 is the special ed assistant contracts to add an additional 5 days for training for them. That's at $132,847. The additional maintenance lawn care staff, 2 additional personnel for the maintenance department, that's at $144,360. And then the additional support position at Catawba Ridge High School to complete their staffing. They are currently understaffed compared to the other 2 high schools. That has just been a phase-in as their school has grown from the original staffing when we built and opened Catawba Ridge High School. So that support position would complete their staffing at the same level as the other 2 high schools. So those 3 category 3 items total 300, and I'm going to round it off, 325,000. The value of a mill is 300,000. So if you add an additional mill, we could cover category 3.
I have a question before we go to there.
Okay.
Might have 2. And I know it's very, very, very early still in auditing and whatnot. We had projected, remind me again, because I was starting to go back into minutes and you'll know faster than I can find it. What were we transferring to contingency at the end of?
2.4 million.
Okay. Do we look like there's going to be more to go into there? And if so, and I'm not looking for a
Yeah.
hardline number.
I think there could potentially be more. The only thing I would caution you as a board about is those are one-time dollars. Right. Adding positions like category 3, those are recurring dollars. This time next year, as you know, we're also going to be faced with having to move a good many positions that are currently in ESSER 2 and a few, and we'll have 1 more year on ESSER 3, but we have, I'm going off the top of my head, but I believe it was 1.5 million roughly in positions that this time next year we will have to pick up in the 23-24 budget. Okay. And that would be my only caution before you decide about that. But yes, I think there could potentially be another smaller dollar increase. We'll see how the final audited numbers come out.
And where are we sitting currently on our contingency fund balance? I know, I'm sorry.
12 million-ish.
Okay.
And we'll be pulling in at least 3.2 in this budget.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I thought, sorry, I need to make sure. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but from a previous meeting, I thought we had plans to pull out the 3.2, that's all right, 3.2 from this meeting, from this year. We've got the second half of opening a school, and then we've got the
Correct.
new openings of schools as we continue to project
Correct.
the
Yes.
need for futures.
We
So
will be
I
getting
thought we
to
were
the end
essentially
of that
clearing out
quickly.
that 12 million.
Yes.
Over the next 3 or 4 years in our.
I would probably say over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So I have a point of order question. If I were to make a motion, am I making a motion or an amendment?
Well, so to be, first of all, hold on. This item that we're discussing officially is the teacher pay scale,
Okay.
right? So at this point, we're talking about the $300 on the teacher pay scale.
Expenses, not revenue.
I think where you're headed, if you're going to make a motion, it's on a subsequent line item that we have not officially gotten to yet.
2.03.
But do we need to make a motion on the teacher pay scale?
Yes.
I believe we do.
Please, for audit purposes,
Because that amends the budget.
that amends
Okay.
the budget. When you approve
how
the
we're-
budget, you
how we're allocating the
approve
dollars.
the salary increases
We're not really
and,
increasing anything, we're just.
Correct. At this
We're
point, we're
shuffling.
increasing the teacher pay scale,
yes,
and how we pay for it,
Is already built into the budget
correct.
that we approved.
Not exactly, because we're adding 50 more to contingency pull-in, but we're increasing the budget
we
by
will have to also
500,000.
approve a budget adjustment regardless.
Right.
There's multiple ways to do that, but we will have to do a second vote for the budget itself if we approve a teacher increase. Okay, make sense? Yes?
Get going.
Okay.
All right, so with that,
Well,
I'd like,
I'm going to stop you because
well, I
I'd like
think
to
we need a
comment.
motion to discuss.
I'd like to comment on what everybody else has commented on. You know, just
Get with it.
first of all, I think I'm incredibly encouraged that that it looks like our surrounding districts are able and putting more money into paying teachers. We have learned, and we know for those who don't, how important and valuable teachers are and how hard they work. And I believe we need to, as a culture and a society, start emphasizing that better by paying them that way. And so I'm encouraged that our other surrounding districts are doing that. However, I do believe that, well, and I know, we are the best district in this state and top in the nation. So therefore, we need to pay the best and to recruit the best and to keep the best. So I am so thrilled that we were able to find the funding here in different ways that will not cost the taxpayers any additional dollars, but pay our teachers at the top scale. So thank you so very much for that. But I also think it's important for the community to know why we are in this predicament. And one of the ways that we can point to is that when at the state level, they had made some mistakes on different things that cost our district a tremendous amount of dollars. One of those things was our insurance that we cover. This is our employee side of the state health insurance. Typically, this goes up 3 to 3.5% a year. It's done that for many, many, many years, and we predict that. That's what we pay in our budget on. And this year, our state increased that from the 3.5% to over 18%. That cost the Fort Mill School District, that cost the Fort Mill community and our taxpayers $1.2 million, which is 4 mills. So I think our community needs to understand the difficulty we have when and the grief that we have when we're making these decisions, because we want to pay the teachers. We want to give them these increases, but we do have a lot of limitations and a lot of things that keep us from doing what we know is right. So I'm thrilled that we were able to give them this $300 increase so that they know that we know they are the best. But also I'd like the taxpayers to know that this is coming from the top down, and this is where we need to spend our focus, is how we're getting our state funding And these mistakes and irresponsibilities at the state level has cost our district 4 mills.
Yes, so said another way, we could have covered 3 and 4 if it weren't for that little change.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just one
And-
example.
And we could have covered the 300
Right.
2 meetings ago.
Yes.
I think you nailed it, Ms. McCarter. I think the only thing is labeling it a mistake, right?
Right.
I think
Yes.
that's
Well,
the only
trying
thing.
to-
I understand
I
it's
don't
a,
wanna
it's
bite
a,
the hand that feeds us,
right,
but
but
we're gonna call it a mistake
there's,
or irresponsibility, one of the two.
right. But our entire budget is built off of, things that are really hampering our district's ability to do the things that we need to do that other districts aren't facing. So,
Like having the least priority amount. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the administration to increase our teacher salary by $300 per sale, the way you've got that set up, however you want me to say that.
So our starting teacher pay,
Would be 43,700, and all cells in the teacher pay scale will increase by 300 as well.
second.
So we have a motion and a second to increase the starting teacher pay starting teacher pay to 43.7, along with all of the other cells, an additional 300 above what was in the previous budget.
Correct.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, the motion carries. Now, our second item, which is where I think some of the conversation was going, was about the mechanics of amending the budget. I guess Ms. Lordo has presented her recommended approach to doing that. I know there's been some conversation about other things, other ideas. So, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to present on this overall before we get into specific questions and suggestions?
I do not. I mean, I think that we've had a lot of discussion over the last couple of months. As Dr. Epps mentioned, you do have additional tax millage opportunity under the Act 388 formula, and we presented as administration what our priorities, our recommendation would be to start going down that list if you would choose to do any additional millage and add to the budget plan for next year.
But regardless, we've got to add the $50,000 or change the transfer, correct?
We have to change the overall bottom line of the budget based on the new total.
To 192, 544, 541.
Correct.
Okay.
Which includes the
I'm
additional
just waiting.
50,000 transfer.
Right. If
Yes,
If we were to move forward with your recommendation, we'd be increasing the budget to that amount, which would include an additional 50,000 from contingency,
correct.
okay? All right, so we've already had some conversation. I would certainly entertain a motion to get more conversation started. I'm not sure which is going to make it.
Well, okay. I'd like to make a motion that we amend the budget to the now currently approved amount of $192,544,541.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any conversation?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess, we can make another motion beyond this if we wanted to.
We can amend the motion.
Okay.
But
Yes.
is there any discussion we would like to have?
Well, I think when we talk about the prioritizing category items, I think that there are 3 that jump out at me, and they're not in any particular order. I think that the 4-year-old at-risk program, that has a long-term lasting effect on students, quite frankly, and staff, because if we can get those interventions going earlier, then it just makes the amount of intervention that we have to spend later to be less. So I think that that's a small price on what the long-term effect of that is. I think that the lawn maintenance, additional 2 positions, I've had great discussion with Mr. Romanek and some other thoughts with regard to, do we buy bigger equipment? Do we buy different equipment? What does the difference mean? At the end of the day, you still have to have the bodies to operate the equipment. And I think that it's important that we show the level of respect to our properties that the public has graciously allowed us to be able to build, and we need to present the right appearance with that. And then on top of that, I think that the special education move from 185 days to 190 days, there is no doubt in my mind, and as we've visited schools and talked to staff and whatnot, that is the hardest area that we have to fill and to maintain, because let's face it, that's probably the highest stress level. My son was a substitute and was a permanent sub with a special education student, and so I have a stronger firsthand knowledge where that's concerned. And I think that for those 3 items, when I run numbers, that's like $289,742, but I wasn't, counting.
No.
300 and,
300, did I miss my 3? Sorry.
if you're
So my
adding the special
389?
ed, the lawn care, and the 4-year-old classroom,
Correct.
it's the 132,847 plus 144,360 plus 125,835. I can't do that in my
What was the
head.
total again?
I'm gonna run it one more time.
132,847, 144,360, and 125,835.
403,042.
One thing I think is very interesting is that our district has always done an incredible job working with students pre-K through 5th grade. And that early intervention dollars we spend goes a tremendously long way. One of the things that I've learned recently is that when we have students that come into our district before 7th grade, or at 7th grade, or earlier, compared to our students that come into our district after 8th grade, our pre-8th grade students score on the SATs 50 points higher on average. So that shows you that what we do with our children prior to middle school and that early intervention dollars are incredibly important, and that's one of our secret sauces here at our district. And I think that piece is incredibly important for us to spend money and effort on, because it will be less expensive to help that student in the later years and more productive. That child is going to reach his potential.
Any other discussion? We have a motion on the table at the moment. That without further discussion, we're going to take a vote on. So,
Well,
I'd like to amend the motion.
okay, then you need to do that.
And the amendment would include raising our millage 1 mil from 16 to 17 mils, and incorporating an additional $100,000 from contingency to pick up the items which fall into Category 3 or Category 4 that were just discussed.
Do I have a second?
let's,
Can we name those discussed items?
yes,
Well,
thank you.
we can't discuss it until we have a second. I mean, you can name them, but we can't have a discussion until we have a second. So the motion is to add a mill and change the transfer from contingency to be 100,000 to cover the increased days for special education assistants, in the additional 2 staff for lawn care, and additional at-risk 4-year-old class with the teacher and the assistant. Yes? My math?
That's
So that's the motion. Do we have a second?
And how much was the pre-K teacher?
125,835. That's a
And then-
teacher and an assistant.
Right.
And we do have the classroom available, and it's already been modified restroom-wise to accommodate that.
We had hoped to do it last year.
Right,
The budget
yes,
didn't allow it, so
So
it's actually at TK Elementary.
it is, a TAK Elementary.
should this pass, are we going to have a problem filling that
Do we have a
position?
second before we discuss
Oh,
it?
sorry.
Second.
Okay. Now, you can ask your question.
Should this pass, will we have a problem finding not just a teacher, but a high-quality Fort Mill School District type teacher and assistant?
Yeah. I would say, I would also even argue for the student side. I'm
Would we be
curious
able to get,
the realities of aligning
think we
students
have
at
a
this
waiting
stage of the game.
list.
Yeah, I mean, there's an
Yeah,
extensive
I
waiting
think
list
we
that we
have
would
a
be able to
waiting list,
populate.
and I don't.
I think there's a wait list.
That's about
Curriculum is at a state meeting
250
today, but
long.
I'm pretty sure they said there's a wait list. That we had 100-something more students who would qualify based on the testing.
Accommodate.
Correct.
and just to clarify for those who were unable to hear Ms. McGarity, she was saying that because it's after May, it would be difficult to find those teachers.
I guess
Not
my
impossible.
my
She's
argument
amazing, but not impossible.
for that is running the risk of not finding a teacher not worth the value of trying, and I think that's the, I think having been in a principal's position in the past, there are people that unexpectedly move into the district because of transfers to spouses, that you can at this point, it's not unheard of to find high quality candidates. I do think that a pre-K position might be a coveted position internally, that or some early childhood folks would find. I don't know on the scale of difficulty in specialty areas of finding early childhood teachers, if that's at the high end of difficult to find. I would imagine it wouldn't be as much as, let's say, a specialty area, science, math, that sort of thing. I don't know. But my bottom line is, I don't think the risk of not finding a teacher isn't worth the consideration for us to, if we can't find the right teacher, if we're unable to do that, then we can, potentially allow administration to allocate those dollars elsewhere to a different Category 3 item.
Or start at second semester, or.
Right, correct. I think there are other options.
There are options. Let me ask a different question. I hate to put you on the spot, but I know you can do this math in your head. I think it's important to make sure that's really clear when we talk about mills, what we're actually talking about, because we're talking about operational mills, right? So even though it's only one mill, it is a tax increase, but it's specifically a tax increase not on houses,
Correct.
not on primary residence.
Not on primary, it's on rental, it's on any property on the tax roll other than a primary residence.
Right. Which technically is still a business, right? If I'm renting my house to someone.
Correct.
That is an investment for me.
It's
So
commercial property, rental
considered commercial.
property,
Right.
vehicles,
Right. It's not on the
boats.
renter, so to speak, although we know it all gets passed along. Same thing, apartments, right? It gets factored into the rent. So I think that's an important clarification. It is a tax increase for individuals on cars and
Correct.
boats. I don't know, it's been so long since we've talked about this. The average car in the community was $30,000 or something like that. So do you know what the increase of a mill would be on something along those lines? Do you have a ballpark?
So it's 30,000 times 6%.
Hang on. Okay,
1,800?
Divided by $1,000, because a mill is per
So it's
$1,000 of value.
1.8.
1.8 times our current, it would be the difference. I need to run the math. I hate to throw these numbers out to y'all.
I'm happy to share. Excuse me.
Okay, yes, you're okay.
Okay.
Because I think it's important to put it in context, right? I mean, it's $300 and something thousand
It's
of
maybe
needed
$20 on a car,
expenses, but
I
I
think.
want to
I
be
think
able
it's
to.
$20
yeah,
or less on a car, but I could be very
Oh,
wrong.
absolutely $20 or less.
A year.
A year.
Yes, yes.
I'm just trying to get a perspective.
So
Now,
go to one less Starbucks a week.
that's more than $20 a year.
Listen, our primary focus should be, what can we do to improve the school district?
Yes.
What is within our authority to get the needs for our students? This is our authority of what we are able to do to serve our students, to serve our staff, to serve our families. This is it. We're working within our authority.
Right. Well, and to the point earlier, the hand that we've been dealt, the funding mechanisms that we've been dealt, this is the only funding mechanism that we have at our discretion, if you will, to make a difference in the education for a Fort Mill student. And I think that it is worth the trade-off for the future of the students and education here.
I think it's less than $5.
That's
I
what,
think it's just a couple dollars.
Yeah.
if that, maybe $2
and that's at a
on a
$30,000
$30,000 vehicle.
I'll say that even though I voted for the increase for the teachers to $300, I do believe the money would be better spent if you had to choose on these item three, category 3 items, as opposed to that, and would more than have covered it. But they're all important, all of it. Like you said earlier, everything on the list is super important.
It's hard it's very hard. I think all the leadership in this district, the administration would tell you, it is very hard when we get into these discussions and try to prioritize these.
To stack rank your children, which one you love the most?
Right?
Yes.
Any further conversation? All right, so just Robert's Rule of Order, let me make sure we're clear. There is an amended motion on the table.
Correct.
That would be that oh gosh, I might have to have the actual budget number, that we increase the budget to, and I don't know what the new.
403,000, well, so the amendment on the table right now is 1 mil and the contingency transfer up to 100,000. That covers a total of $403,042. And then once we have decided where that goes, that depends on the original motion that I
Right.
made on the budget. So we need to do this one first. So I'm ready to vote.
Is there any further conversation, further discussion?
No,
Right.
call the question.
All those in favor of approving a 1 mil increase and an additional, and a total $100,000 from contingency to cover the 3 items discussed, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you not vote?
No, I did not vote. Are we sure we don't need another public meeting?
I am sure.
We do not need it.
Don't vote, it counts as no vote.
No, she's asking something different. Yeah,
We do
again, important clarification. In our public meeting, that was a discussion, and we disclosed that we had the ability at the time to go to 21 mils. And so we're not going above that. We could have done anywhere between 0 and 21 at that point in time. So we did clarify that, because we were talking about this anyway. So no additional public hearing is required. We only have to have 1 public hearing on the budget. Okay. I'm not sure if you voted or not.
No, I
did
didn't
not.
vote.
So are you voting or are you abstaining?
I'm going to abstain from voting.
Okay,
That counts as a no vote.
that's fine. That motion did pass,
Correct?
4-2. So now, we need a
I
new
need-
motion.
So.
I need a new total on the bottom
well,
line.
I'm working on it.
Thank you.
I have it, but I think what has to happen is we have to, I can withdraw my original motion. I don't think I can.
You can't, because we passed the amended one, we're good. The amended motion has already passed.
Yeah, but you have to come back and approve the original that was put on the floor, which is the 192,544,541. But that's no longer the number because of what we just approved. The new number is 192,947,583. So I would like to amend my original motion on the floor to change the budget, bottom line, and you handle accordingly.
Total general fund budget.
Total general fund budget of $192,947,583.
Second.
All right, so what I believe is now an amended and hopefully final motion on the table is an amended budget, 192,947,583. Per the previously approved amendment, it does increase our millage by 1, and also means that instead of 50, we would be bringing in 100,000 from contingency.
And raises millage to 17.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any discussion on that?
Yeah, is it 100 or is it 150? Right, because the original, just,
Well, a mill is 325, so we only needed 75.
okay, that's it. We're good.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further conversation, discussion, questions? Ms. Lordo or Dr. Epps, anything you would want to share of wisdom before the board votes on this final motion?
The board has the ability to do
Yes.
this and raise millage,
And-
and that's what.
And it sounds like the administration is supportive
We're very
additional-
supportive,
that's what I
and,
wanted
and I'm sure these areas affected by these additional 3 items will be thrilled and will be jumping on this afternoon. Probably as we speak, if they've heard the discussion.
Not until we say approved.
Okay,
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The motion carries. I believe that was the complete list of things that were
Hang on, let me
scheduled
check my,
for
I'll check
today's
for you
discussion.
just to be safe, but I believe yes. Yes,
Thank you for those who joined. It was a bit of a challenge to find a new time with everybody's vacations over the summer. I don't believe we have another special called meetings, which would put our next meeting the second Tuesday in August. We'll go back onto the normal calendar at that point unless something changes. So thank you all for joining, and I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.